Social media data offers us unprecedented volumes and velocity of information based on social interactions, on attitudes and beliefs. It also gives us data at a different temporal and geographical granularity than we typically had. So if you have geotagging turned on a tweet, we know to the meter, rather scarily, where you are when you did that. And we also have to the second when the tweet was made. So let's take an example such as a leaders' debate of a general election. Yes, we can do a telephone survey afterwards, and that takes a bit of time to collect the data. But on Twitter, we can see exactly how people felt to the second based on what people said. And you've seen those sentiment worms when there's a live audience rating whether they like or dislike something. That's a very different way of doing things. And actually, by capturing something that is naturally occurring and elicited by a content producer, that's very different than collecting data in a constructed artificial environment. There's lots of interesting stuff to be done here around, for instance, the Hawthorne effect. So how does the measurement affect what's being measured? So obviously in an artificial environment like a survey, it's very obvious that we're being measured. It's not entirely clear either that the type of information that naturally appears online isn't mediated in some way because people are curating a virtual identity. So there's loads of work to be done about this, but I think it is telling us something different at a different volume, a different velocity than we've ever had before. And I also think as social scientists, we have an ethical and moral duty to engage with this because companies are, the private sector is, and we're not always entirely sure what they're doing or why certain products categorize people in certain ways. So I feel as an academic community of social scientists with computer scientists, as an interdisciplinary alliance, we can start to challenge perhaps the dominance of companies and the private sector that they have over algorithms and the collection of data and the sorts of conclusions you can draw about it. So the biggest challenge of using big data, which includes incidentally transactional data, social media data, admin records, includes a plethora of things, is that I think it's safe to say as an academic community, we're not used to dealing with it. We have very traditional modes of social research, being qualitative or quantitative. We have very finely honed methods for, say, sampling, methodology and weighting on surveys. And this is a completely new paradigm for us. What does inference mean in social research with social media data? What does inference mean for Twitter data? What does a p-value even mean? Well, actually, probably nothing. Who are your sample? Who are your population? So using big data is about filtering the signal from the noise, whereas before in traditional modes of social research, you would design your data collection instrument to gather only the signal, if that makes sense. So it's a very different way of doing things, but at the same time, it's still about sampling, it's still about representation, about bias, it's still about gathering enough data to make a conclusion with some level of confidence. But of course, how you measure confidence and how you measure the size of an effect, well, those are the things that we're grappling with.